And hopefully that's precisely what you're going to do. Eddie, everyone loves a wild night out in the city, and that is what Formula One gave us this evening.
Well, you know, the word that comes to me is triumphant. This was absolutely a magic moment for Ferrari, for this city, and in particular Alonso. If anyone out there, aspiring young racing drivers, ever wanted to see a casebook study of that perfect race, that was it. Magic.
David, the celebrations are pretty wild behind us, mainly Ferrari people getting very excited. With Fernando Alonso performing so well in a car that's performing so well, this is pretty ominous for the rest of Formula One, isn't it?
Well, indeed. He's been outscoring everyone else in the last few races, delivered an amazing pole yesterday, almost lost it at the run down to the first corner, had to be very aggressive with Sebastian. And thereafter, you know, we don't know at the moment whether he was just stroking it home or whether that was the maximum pace he could give it. But, you know, he only needs to win by a nose, and he did that very convincingly.
Well, whoever wins the title this year might only win it by a nose, because it is super tight, and this is how it's looking after today's Grand Prix. It was only a few races ago that Ferrari was saying, one more bad result and they'll start focusing on 2011. They are now focusing on the Drivers' and Constructors' World Championship. Look at that. Fernando Alonso, 2 wins on the spin. He now moves up to second. Jenson Button, despite finishing well ahead of his teammate Lewis Hamilton, who was out of the points, slips down to 5th place because of Sebastian Vettel's strong finish, and it's even closer as far as the Constructors' Championship is concerned. We'll have a look at that a little bit later, but right now let's have a look at the big moment on track, David, in that Grand Prix, and it was Lewis Hamilton versus Mark Webber. Webber wins, Lewis loses.
Well, indeed, when you look at it from this angle, then it was just very, very tight there. Mark tries to get up the curb. Obviously, Lewis commits to the corner from on board from Mark here. He's got a clear run down, and then obviously that door closes inevitably, as it would, as Lewis goes to take his apex. If you look at it from this angle, of course, it looks like it's completely Mark's fault, because, you know, Lewis obviously turns in with a clear track and gets hit from the rear. But it won't please the guys at McLaren, but I think unfortunately that's just a racing incident. You know, a manoeuvre's not over once you've just got your nose ahead. You've got to actually make it round the corner, and racing incident in Monza when Lewis lost his nose there. I think that's a racing incident here.
The great thing about this, the stewards were onto it immediately, and we know Danny Sullivan is there, an old friend and colleague of a lot of us, and so a very experienced hand, Gary Connolly. Yet the stewards are very experienced here at this moment, so they looked carefully at all the angles. So I don't think there's going to be much. There's going to be a little bit coming from the McLaren, as you probably would expect, because it was a big dent in the championship for Lewis. But at the same time, it's probably seen to be a racing accident, and that was the decision made by the stewards.
You saw Lewis Hamilton there going back into McLaren's race. I'm sure someone will sit Lewis down and say, listen, there is still one win between the top 5, but how will he be feeling at the moment? Well, as the race was in its closing stages, he spoke to Lee Mackenzie about that moment.
Lewis, here we are again whilst the race is on. Just tell us what happened out there with Mark.
It's a bit of a daze, really. I'm not really sure what happened. He was in my blind spot, so I didn't even know he was still there.
And the stewards aren't going to further investigate it. So, I mean, do you think it would be a racing incident?
I don't know. I'd have to look on the TV. I have to look on the replay. I honestly don't even know what happened. All I know is I went in. I didn't see anyone alongside me, and next thing I know, my tyre's blown, and that's it.
If the race finishes in this way, you'll be in 3rd position in the championship, 20 points behind Fernando Alonso. Can you still be world champion this season?
I think it's a tough call. It's still 4 races, but I mean, I couldn't have expected a worse 2 races, especially at this crucial point of the year. So I'll do what I can, but let's just hope that at least myself or Jenson can do it.
And how telling is that? That is Lewis Hamilton saying, hopefully myself or Jenson will do it. He doesn't seem like the kind of driver that will normally give his teammate the leg up or talk about his teammate as the world champion, does he?
Yeah, but I think there's a confidence there. Lewis knows he's a great driver.
Yeah.
You know, the pass he attempted there was a great piece of opportunistic driving. He saw, I think it was Glock, and the Virgin was holding Mark, and he saw the opportunity and took a run at it. And he's a racer, you know. Okay, 2 disappointing races for him, no points scored, but he's still very much in this championship.
Yes, he is in the championship, but I think the reference there that Lewis was making, he wanted to pay tribute, I think, in a small way, to say, Jenson, you finished 2nd in Monza and you finished 4th here in difficult circumstances. You're tallying up the points, the team together, we're behind everybody, let's move on forward. Of course he wants himself to win the championship, but he's also being very magnanimous and giving a good shout to his teammate.
I actually think that Lewis was very balanced there in that interview, because it would be very easy for him to say, you know, Mark hit my rear and spun me round and, you know, make all sorts of accusations. But he was just completely calm with it, really. He said he turned in, he didn't know he was there, and didn't expect him, obviously, to make contact.
I'm sure when he looks at it, though, he'll blame Mark Webber, won't he?
Oh, I'm sure he does.
Yeah.
You know, and of course, Mark will say that was a racing incident, and all the McLaren fans will say it was Mark's fault, and all the Red Bull fans will say it was, you know, a racing incident. That's just the way it is. The bottom line is the stewards have taken their decision, and there's no further action. But, you know, disappointing day for him.
OK, well, as Eddie said, it's all about consistency at this stage, and Jenson Button is Mr. Consistency. Another strong finish from him. He's talking to Lee Mackenzie.
Well, Jenson, a long, steady race, but you saw the checkered flag and you've got the points. Is that what it's all about at this stage?
I wish it felt like a steady race. I was flat out all the way, you know. You know, the first start of the race, I thought I'd take it easy on the rear tyres, because we suffered on Friday with the rear end going away. And I think it helped me a little bit towards the end of the stint. You know, the last 3 laps before my stint, at the end of my stint, I was pulling in Lewis, who I think was suffering with rear tyres going away. It looked like that anyway, from what I could see. And then after the safety car on the prime tyre, the same sort of issue with the rear instability, entry and also exits. I mean, immediately. So suffering with that a little bit, and not being able to challenge a Red Bull that has 30 more laps on his tyres. I think it shows that they're very quick around here. But you know, it's a circuit we knew they'd be competitive. We knew this would be probably our most difficult race. So we go to Japan happy, and we got a good upgrade for there. There's something we had tried to put on the car this weekend, which we couldn't for reliability reasons. So that hopefully will be with us also in Suzuka. So it'll be double whammy, and we'll have a competitive car.
So you still feel very much in the championship race?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this hurt a little bit with Webber finishing in front of me. That was the main one, really. Yeah, it's still only just over a race victory. So it's a very small amount. 10-11 points last year. I mean, we all raced until the last race, and I won just before the last race with, I think, in the end it ended up being 8 points. But so it shows that there's everything to play for. And you know, Lewis's misfortune today with Webber. I don't quite know what happened there. I just saw Webber run wide and push Lewis wide, and I don't know what happened to his car. But it shows that you won one bad race and it cost you a lot of points, and obviously. So consistency is important, but obviously I need to be on the podium.
Well, the podium is what Jenson Button is after. He wasn't far from that today, but it's Mark Webber, Sebastian Vettel and Fernando Alonso who pick up the big prizes. Felipe Massa finished 10th. He battled all the way back from the very final spot on the grid. Well, guys, we can stand here. The crowd are here. The cameras are out. They've certainly enjoyed the Grand Prix. And we're going to enjoy the run-in now towards the end of the season, because this leaves us in a fantastic position going towards the final few races.
It does indeed. We mentioned at the beginning of the show, very difficult for the teams to bring as many upgrades in these flyaway races, but nonetheless, these 3 teams have to keep pushing. They have to keep developing this year's car, because there's so much at stake for this championship.
There was such a worry, Eddie, at the early part of the season that Red Bull were going to run away with this. Well, their dominance has been eroded. Coming here, they were expected to fly, and they didn't.
For very many reasons, and I'm not sure exactly what that is, but they have been very consistent with 2 drivers. They've got the emphasis has always been on the speed, and that's where I'm somewhat cautious about. Qualifying has been exemplary, but they have never been able to dominate the race. OK, just to let you know, if you enjoyed this Grand Prix and you want to see even more, then you can check out the highlights tonight on BBC 3 from 7 o'clock. There's more sport coming your way this week, including the question, is professionalism killing sport in Inside Sport, 11:05 on Tuesday. Next weekend, Japan, Motegi for the MotoGP, and a week after that, we're in Japan with Formula One. But we're not going anywhere right now. If you press red, you can enjoy all this. Thank you very much for pressing the red button to join us for the F1 Forum. He really didn't know which way you were going, did he?
Well, it's lovely to see you, and lovely, I'm sure, to be reunited with Eddie.
Yeah.
What do you think Eddie would be saying to Sebastian Vettel?
I can't say that. I can't say that on TV.
The guys are just getting the boxing gloves ready right now.
Can we film that?
Yeah, I'm up for that.
What do you look like? I thought I paid you properly when you were with us.
All your emails, all your texts, all your tweets. Thanks for getting in touch. All that to look forward to on the F1 Forum. Hands up if you like the F1 Forum. Yeah. That's every arm up in the air. Join us there for all the reaction to today's Grand Prix, because we've run out of time, of course, here on BBC One. Guys, thank you both very much indeed. Good fun to share it with you once again. Well, how about that then? Formula One lit up the night sky and delivered a thrilling blast around the bay. I'm sure Fernando Alonso will enjoy a Singapore sling or two this evening, but then first thing in the morning, he'll take a look at the standings and realise it's now 4 races to go. 5 men still in the hunt. We'll see you in Japan.
It's